Okay, what's happening, guys? Today I'm going to talk in depth about looking for a job in Poland, looking for work in Poland. I'm going to go over so much value, I can't believe it. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and by the way, I've lived in Poland now for 10 years, almost on the dot. Been coming to Poland since 2007. I've worked in multiple companies, well, multiple businesses. So I hope I'm going to be able to give you guys a useful perspective on coming to the country. One thing I didn't want to do, though, was do a silly 5-minute video, bang, 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 bang. I want to go step by step over some of the things I think you need to know. We're going to talk about average salaries. We're going to talk about the kind of jobs you can look for. We're going to talk about the kind of situations you might end up in. Some of the things I wish I'd known when I first moved to Poland 10 years ago. We're going to talk about where you can look for work, what some of the pluses and minuses are of looking for work in Poland, what kind of jobs are hot right now, other jobs actually where you're not going to earn very much money. And my goal would be for people watching this to be able to go, thank you so much. I stopped myself from doing something silly that I didn't realize I was about to do. In other words, look for a job in a industry which is impossible. Or I started as a result of this film going somewhere else where I wasn't quite expecting. Guys, we're going to talk about also as well. I'm going to give you 3 case studies. Oliver McLeod, thank you for doing this. So, Oliver, you're the first person writing in this chat, my friend. I want to give you a little reward. If you are currently looking for work in Poland, or if you're thinking about moving to Poland, feel free to write to me now what your experience is so far, how old you are, if you have kids, where you've been looking for work so far, or what you've tried to do, and how well that's gone. That's essentially what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to have to make a few key points at the start, my friend. The first is that this discussion is almost irrelevant if it won't be, hello, Simon, I'm going to talk about you today as well, if you're not a bit like me. So, for example, I was a member of an EU country, almost over. Ryan Fletcher, been looking forward to this all week. Thanks for taking the time. Ryan, Simon, Oliver, if you guys want to write about where you are right now, feel free to start commenting. The more details you give me in the description, the more I'll be able to help you. And guys, remember, when I'm helping somebody else, that means I'm also helping you. Because even if we're talking about Simon who wants to be a photographer, you can still get some benefit from that. So I'm going to have to make some assumptions, guys. The first thing is I'm going to assume that you're a British person because I can relate to you more closely. If you're from America, if you have Polish heritage, then it's a slightly different kettle of fish. I'm not going to look too much into how to get work permits to Poland because I'm assuming that you're from the UK and that you've got that sorted. If not, you're going to have to look at that in the first order. I'm assuming you've met a Polish girl. Simon, I think this definitely applies to you. It pretty much applies to all 7 of the guys that I was studying Polish with in London in 2007 when the lady said, "Why are you here?" Literally all 7 of us or 8 of us put our finger up and went, yeah, I met a Polish girl and I want to impress her parents-in-law. And that brings me on to the next subject. I'm going to assume that you don't really speak very much Polish. It's not necessarily a problem, but it could stop you from achieving your true potential in Poland. It could stop you from earning very much money. It could force you to try a job, at least for a while, perhaps even for several years, that you don't really end up wanting to do. Alicia, that's me, Simon's girl. Oh my God, we've got a family affair going on here. So to summarize, I'm going to assume you're British. I'm going to assume you're a man. I'm going to assume you don't speak very much Polish. You've got a bit of employment under your belt, but not a huge amount. So you're not really a specialist in any other area. Guys, why should I tell you about this? Maybe I'll just summarize. So I met a Polish girl in 2007, started coming to Wrocław, fell in love with the country, typical immigrant story where I fell in love with Poland, fell in love with the culture, started to discover more about the history, talked to people about Solidarność and Second World War, visited the museums and just loved it all, just really nice. Very, very typical experience. And I've been working in the UK in government for various different government ministers, including in the cabinet office during the economic crisis. And I kind of got chewed up by that experience. If I'm being honest, I was 24, 5, 26, 27, and it just kind of broke me down, as you can imagine. So I was ready for a new challenge. My ex-girlfriend Joanna moved to Warsaw, and I was, why not? I'll just go. I think I had maybe about £700 in my pocket. No idea what I was doing. Just literally winging it. And that's probably where you are right now, because until you get on the ground, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Oliver, I'm from the UK and 28. I speak no Polish, but willing to learn. I've just graduated from university as a web developer with a year and 10-month experience. So, Oliver, immediately you're in a different category, because Oliver, you're in a environment which is big in Poland right now. I mean, for you, Oliver, I'd say you could. I don't want to say you walk into a job, because I'm not an IT specialist, but from what I know about the IT industry, the competition for staff is so good that you're probably going to earn more or less the same salary that you got in the UK, or you would get in the UK at a similar position. You know, depending on how much experience you've got, what kind of programming you do, or what kind of developing you do, you can pretty much, Oliver, walk into a job in Poland. It should be no problem for you whatsoever. So Oliver is a lucky guy, because not many of us are going to belong to that. However, one thing that you might want to consider is retraining. And immediately, guys, I can tell you, if there's one sector that you're going to do extremely well in, that you're going to earn a lot of money and have a good quality of living, it would be in programming and developing. Lawrence, welcome. So, guys, the more you write to me about where you are, like Oliver, what age you're in, what situation you're in, what you've looked for so far, what you'd like to do, I'd be happy to write back to you as well. Edusha, my husband is British, graphic designer, speak no Polish. So Edusha, Simon's a little bit like you. I'll come back to your situation in a bit. I'm also going to assume that you've got a high tolerance for risk. So moving to a foreign country, a pretty risky thing to do. You don't know anyone, you've got no friends, you have no idea about the politics, the business culture, the work culture, the expectations, the hidden cultural things that foreigners don't see about our country are exactly the same in Poland. It just took me a while to get there. No children, because when you have kids, then everything changes completely. Your risk appetite goes down through the pan. So, guys, should you move? Well, this is one question you want to ask yourself. I didn't really think about it too much. I was just tired of London and wanted to get out. I can see that now in perspective. Here's some good news. Unemployment in Poland is at a historic low. I mean, obviously, we're talking now at the moment in the middle of a crisis, but the fundamentals of the Polish economy are so good that I don't think you've got anything to worry about. I've got graphs in front of me, guys, I'm going to refer to just from time to time. So the unemployment rate right now in Warsaw is 1.4%. It practically doesn't exist. But if your girlfriend or wife, potential, is looking for you to move to, say, a small village to be close to the family, maybe the first kid's on the way, that situation is going to look completely different. You're going to have to commute somewhere. You may end up, let's see if we can find a place yet. You might end up in Przemysl, right in the southeast border. Well, the good news is that's close to Rzeszów, and there's a fair bit of business there in the aeronautical sector. The bad news is the unemployment rate in Rzeszów is 10%. So there's, I don't know, like 6 or 7 times more unemployed people looking for work in Przemysl than in Warsaw. Not to mention, of course, the size of the job market. But I'd say overall, the good news about the Polish economy is that it's going places. Now, when I was younger, I didn't appreciate how important this is, but you want to be in a growth sector. Oliver, IT, you're in a good place, and you want to be in a growth area. So typically, you'll see most big companies, the kind of companies that might employ you as an English speaker, being based in big cities, or close to big cities, or close enough to big cities. Lawrence Salter, Patrick, I'm a nurse. I heard the working conditions are poor. I'm willing to retrain in different sectors. I can speak a bit of Polish. What options do I have? I worked in bars previously. So, Lawrence, I think the average salary for a nurse right now, if I remember rightly, is 4,600 zloty brutto. So you're going to end up with about 3,500, maybe 4-ish thousand zloty netto. In other words, net. Lawrence, can you survive living on 4,000 zloty? Yes, you can. But you're not going to have very much left over. In any case, you'd have to retrain. I think you'd have to go through the qualifications. So again, Lawrence is asking a great question, which is, this is my experience I've already got. What can I do with it? And each of our experiences will be different. For Oliver, as a developer, boom, amazing. Dude, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to be just fine. So guys, salary per region. Something else I want to talk about. How much might you earn? Well, obviously, again, this depends entirely on sector. What you guys need to know is obviously that there are various tax conditions. We're going to go into tax conditions in a bit. The average salary in Poland is something around 5,000 zloty brutto, so gross. And I don't know how much that works out, about 4-ish thousand net, maybe something like that. We'll talk a little bit more about tax in a bit. But basically, like any country and like any economy, there's a significant degree of variation. So within that, you've got nurses and teachers who are unfortunately paid Yeah. And IT specialists who are 15, 20, 25,000 zloty a month. And if you're on 25,000 zloty a month, it doesn't really matter where you live. You're going to be having a very, very comfortable life indeed. So, guys, I've got the 30 top jobs here. I'm just going to roll through them as quickly as possible. And this is an article from Prost Business. I'm going to link to this so you could probably translate it. This is from the 10th of March. So here are a bunch of jobs that if you spoke Polish, you might be able to just about do. We're going to come onto this in a second. So number 30, public relations specialist, 13,000 zloty. I've worked in PR, guys. The average public relations specialist probably doesn't earn that much, but let's just take it as a figure of salt. 13,000 zloty is enough, I would say, almost anywhere to keep you and a family of two just about managing. Sales trainer, 13,500 zloty. Yeah, sales, you'll probably get quite a lot of sales related jobs. There are a lot of Polish companies that want to do sales, and you could be an invaluable source to them. But if you don't have any sales experience, you won't be commanding a salary like that. It'll be base plus commission. All right. Financial analyst, 13,700. Yeah, there probably is. Unfortunately, the vast majority of those companies right now probably be working in Polish. So, but in theory, if you're in that area, you could look. Systems administrator, 14,000 zloty. Seems really high from my point of view, but what do I know? HR business partner, 14,000 zloty. Engineer programowania wbudowanego. So this is a programmer, coder, something like that. 14,000 zloty. I've seen coders and programmers with salaries higher than that, but okay. Constructor, I think that's something to do with building, 14,000. Energy supervisor, 14,000. Administrator of a LAN or WAN connection, 14,000. Guys, this is getting super weird. Strategic purchase manager, 14,000. Yeah, so when you're looking at corporates, you'll see some corporates, international corporates operating in Poland with very high salaries, 30, 40, 50,000. People like IKEA, for example, you're going to command a very nice salary there. So there are some businesses that are paying in the equivalent rate that you would get in the UK, in Holland, or somewhere like that. I'm seeing a few questions, guys. I'm going to roll through these salaries, then come back to your questions. We've got quite a lot to go through. Sales representative, 14,500. Control specialists, I think that's something to do with financing. Yeah, accountancy is 15,000. Computer systems analysis, 15,000. Engineer, 15,000. Systems control board representative, 15,500. This is stuff I would definitely not do in a million years, but okay. Sales specialist, 16,000. You can see the salaries are looking a bit similar, so I'm just going to keep going, guys, and try and get to the last. Okay, so here we are. Specialist with ERP systems. That's something to do with programming or developing. 18,000. Product engineer, 18,000. Sales representative in the technical branch, 18,500. Programmer, boom, 19,500 zloty, guys. That would be a good salary even in the UK. Let's be honest. SAP consultant, so that's SAP, yeah. Mechanic, okay, 20,000. Who knew? Lawyer, 21,300. But to be a lawyer in Poland, you would need to be Polish and you need to have done your exams and all the rest of it. So, guys, what does that teach you? Well, I think one of the key things I would say right away is, are those gross per month or year? Lawrence, great question. Those were gross salaries per month. So depending on what form of employment you have, that would work out at about 2/3 of that. Okay, I'm going to have a look at your questions, guys, and I hope the questions will be useful for others. Let's have a look. Hi, Patrick. I'm Mexican. I'm a Spanish language teacher and I want to go to Poland to teach my language. What are the chances to get a job there? I'm already learning Polish. So, Mary, when the financial crisis came, there was actually a surprisingly large uptick of Spanish people to Poland. I think there's overall a large interest in the Spanish language, and I'm pretty certain you could get a teaching job. But teaching has its pluses and minuses. If you're a teacher, you're probably qualified. What I would say to all those people who think that teaching is an easy job is, you're wrong. It's a calling. We'll come back to that as well. Let's go back here. Filip mówi po polsku. Filip, my old friend. Patrick, I'm American. I speak some Polish, and I've been working as a software engineer for 20 years now. So I guess I feel most of the assumptions. I just like to listen to you talk about Poland. Filip, maybe you want to make the move earlier. Enjoy a little bit more of your sunshine years. in Poland? Why wait until you're retired? Okay, let's have a look further. Patrick szuka robota. I'm not currently looking for work, non-person. Okay. Something about retiring. Well, I mean, guys, as long as you have enough money in the bank for you to last until 80, 90, 100, to survive any unpleasant medical problems that you have. If you've got liquidity, if you're earning somehow from passive income, why not? I think the quality of life you can have in Poland can be very significant. On the other hand, it's less of a beautiful countryside that you can retire to, although there are nicer spots. Happy to talk about that towards the end. Okay, so the good news is there are some significantly high-paying jobs in Poland. The bad news is that when you turn up with 500 quid in your pocket and little to no Polish language, you're not going to have access to them. At the absolute earliest, you might be able to do it within 5 to 10 years, depending on what field you're in. So you're going to have to do some other stuff to survive, to get into the culture, to get moving. I'm going to talk about that throughout the course of this webinar. But the first thing I want to talk about, guys, is the cost of living. So how much would you need to survive? And guys, I'm going to add all of these links that I'm talking about right now in the description. They're all in Polish, sadly, but Google has come along a long way. Hello, I'm Polish. I'm 16 years old. Adrian says, I'm learning to become an IT specialist and programmer. What do you think about my choice? Adrian, I think you're going to be richer than Midas, my friend, richer than Croesus. You're going to do so well for yourself living in Poland. You are coming, my dear friend Adrian, at exactly the right time to earn a lot of money, but also to enjoy yourself. If that's your passion, great. Poland's the right place to be. So guys, how much does it cost to survive in Poland? Well, I already talked about the fact that my assumption is that you don't have children. When you have children, that changes everything. Let's have a look now. There's a survey here from Gazeta Pomorska from CBOS, which is the Centrum Badania Opinii Społecznej, so it's the Central Public Opinion Research Center. So they had 3 levels of response. How much do I need money-wise? And I'm just going to give I'll give all of them. I'll give it as a range. So the average respondent in Poland, one person to survive, said they needed 2,000 to 4,000 zloty brutto. So if you're a singleton, if you're coming to Poland just for the hell of it, you should aim for 4,000 and be happy with 2. You could just about scrape it. It wouldn't be pleasant, but you could do it. 2-person. How much money would you need for 2 people? Minimum 3,289. Upper end 6,485. I think if you're living in Warsaw, you'd still be stretching at 6,485. 3-person family, so it's probably with 1 kid, 3,800 to 8,500. And then finally, 4-person family. How much money would you need to survive? 4,000. How much money would you need to have the life that you wanted? 8,800. I tell you now, guys, in Warsaw for 4 people, that seems like a very small amount of money. Okay. So could you, should you? Well, a lot of things are going to hit you around the chops when you come to Poland, my friend. And one of them is that you're probably going to earn significantly less money than you did in the UK or in the country where you're coming from, just by dint of the fact that you're going back a bit. Now, again, guys, if you want to write in the comments right now what sector you're in, how much experience you've got, I'm going to give you some case studies in a minute. But I want to just tell you briefly about my journey. So what did I do? When I turned up, got to look for work now because this money isn't going to last for very long. I was luckily staying. My girlfriend had a job, so she was able to pay for our apartment. But, you know, no man wants to be in that situation where their wife is keeping them at home. So do you know what I did, guys? Because there was no Facebook. There was no, I think Pracuj.pl didn't exist even. Golden Line was still big. Gadu Gadu was big. I'm just rolling out all the different names here. LinkedIn was just like an idea, perhaps, or barely existed. Twitter was in its infancy. So there was none of the support networks that are available out now. I'm going to give you 10 top tips in a bit to help you in your journey in Poland, my guys. We'll get onto that in a sec. So do you know what I did? I started to walk the streets of Warsaw looking for the nameplates of companies that were international. And I would write them down in a little list and try and find out how somehow I could get to how I could just get into these companies, because I didn't even have a way of finding out who was available. So I was looking for international companies that would probably be working in English, because 10 years ago, guys, I didn't speak any Polish or barely any Polish, certainly not enough to work professionally. And I didn't have any ideas, and I didn't have any friends, and I didn't have any contacts. Now, maybe I made the wrong decision. I decided not to hang around with other expats. And maybe a top tip I should give you guys right now is to think about leveraging your fellow countrymen. Just going to the pub with people and meeting up with them. I deliberately avoided them, and maybe I paid the price for that. So after a while, I can't remember how long it was, I went for my first job interview in a suit and a tie, because I'm an ex-cabinet office boy. I'm an ex-government man, to an English language school. And I think the lady's face when she saw me walk in a suit and tie with polished shoes was absolutely priceless. They must have, I'm going to say something rude. They must have been quite surprised when I turned up, and they must have had a jolly good chortle about it afterwards. And I got an English language teaching job. And we had a lady here, Mira, who was learning, who's teaching Spanish, and she asked about what the rights are for. And guys, learning English is probably teaching a language is probably the number one easiest job that you could get. But I want to warn you, teaching is not just some cheapo thing you can do as a stopgap. Teaching effectively is a really demanding, difficult job. And if you come without a TEFL or whatever the other ones are, any kind of other qualification, what you'll inevitably run up into is that your students may well know more grammar than you do, and you won't really be teaching these people. I have a huge amount of respect for teachers, having done it. And it's the number one thing that people do, just go for the language. Now, people like Mary Head, who's writing in the comments right now, that's your passion, that's your life. Totally respect that. Huge amounts of love for teachers. However, be aware that if you're a nurse and you go into teaching, it's going to be an uncomfortable transition. It's going to be a pivot for you. I'm going to give you guys some mindsets that you can think about as you pivot towards a new opportunity. So I wasn't really happy with this, guys, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit lonely. I was only doing enough teaching really to basically survive. So I've got my pay slip here is at 2,000, 1,700, 2,500. And you know, one thing is just a mild aside, I would sometimes meet, especially in the last few years, like, oh, you had it easy, you're English, you had it easy, like doors just open for you. No. Not at all. If anything, the doors were shut. It certainly felt like that at the time. So given that I had government experience, given that I'd worked for UK Trade and Investment and supported British companies exporting to Africa, I decided to contact the people at UKTI. And this is another top tip. It's leverage the experience you've already got. The most valuable way, the way that you can create most value, the way that you can therefore earn the most salary and afford the life that you need for your family or the life you want to live, is to leverage the experience you've already got. Now, I'm going to give you some case studies of people who are put in a difficult position for various reasons because of that. But I think this is definitely a top tip. I was lucky enough to get an internship with them, which lasted for 6 weeks. And guys, it's who you know in Poland, just like anywhere. After I was in there for 6 weeks, after I'd had lunch with them, after I'd made them laugh, after I worked out who the decision makers were, it wasn't that much longer before a job opening came up, and I was able to work there for a 6-month period. And then I got a full-time job, and then I ended up managing a team, and then I ended up being handpicked for a new project working with the British government and the British Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to talk too much about that experience, but just so you guys know, having done that, I then went to work as a director in a Polish PR company. Tough, guys. I spoke pretty good Polish, but you pitch business worth 150, 250,000 zloty to a big multinational where everybody only speaks Polish, because that's the reality for many multinationals in Poland. And your Polish isn't up to scratch. And you've got the boss on one side and your colleague on the other, and you've got the client opposite. And you're not really able to actually sell the thing, which is desperate, and your whole job relies on it. It's awkward and painful, but I'm glad I did it, because my Polish went boom through the roof in that year. It was unbelievable. I then went to work as a director for another Polish company, marketing agency, really interesting experience. And as of the last 2-ish years, I've been working on my own, essentially doing a whole bunch of different things, from owning a business and running a business, helping parents with raise their children, to film work and journalism and all kinds of stuff like that. So I've had a fair amount of experience. I've hired a lot of people. I've fired a few people. I've worked with quite a lot of foreigners as well. So there's a little bit of background for me, guys. I've seen a few comments come in, so I'm going to take the opportunity before I talk about various forms of employment and I give you 10 top tips. Okay. Cheese Graham, how about the industrial side, i.e., welding? Cheese Graham, I'm not entirely sure, dude. I mean, there's a lot of industrial work. There's a lot of companies making stuff in Poland. Poland's the lower end of the German supply chain. So I reckon you could probably identify a lot of companies where people are doing what you do. Now, how important is language in what you do, Cheese Graham? Probably they would require you to speak Polish, I assume, because your job is a manual job. Am I right? Not. I don't know a huge amount about industrial side, but Cheese Graham, if you write what kind of companies we're looking for, maybe, mate, we can even do a job hunt for you right now. Yeah, guys, we're going to do that. Matt, I'm 32. I'm a man. I speak fluent Polish. I have 10 years experience in the construction industry as a health and safety manager. What do you think? I have family in Poland. Haven't been back since 93. Matt, I'm going to do an exercise in about 5-ish minutes, which could be really useful for you. We'll wait there for a second. Stuart, I'm 49 with 15 years IT, infrastructure, DevOps experience. Wife and 3 kids, 14, 17, 19. Speak Polish? Boom. Wife is a project manager but speaks no Polish. Okay, so Stuart, what brings you to Poland, my friend, in that case? Because that's a big move with kids at a key age. I'm not saying no. I never say to anyone, guys, no. But you obviously want to do as much homework as you can and prepare the ground and get everything settled. However, Stuart, thinking instinctively, it seems like you'd be in a good place because there are a very large number of small, medium, and big Polish IT companies that would probably welcome a senior manager with your experience. However, the job market is never easy as you're slipping into your almost 50, dude. Sorry to remind you about that, but don't worry, I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. So I'm feeling it. It's difficult. I've got a case study at the end of this presentation I'll give you for someone who was 55, who I know, who had a real difficult time finding a job. Spoke less Polish than you do, by the way, so super grats to that. AM Thomas, super grateful if you might say a bit more about being an entrepreneur, starting running your own business enterprise in Poland. Thomas, I'll absolutely do that, my friend. Ben, worked in the music industry for 5 years in management and live shows. My girlfriend has talked about moving to Poland. Do I stand a chance of continuing within music? Polish learner. Good man. Awesome. Okay, so the live shows. Well, obviously a lot of live shows are putting on in Poland. I think it's a fairly developed industry. Why would a Polish company need you, Ben? I can think of some good reasons. I can think of companies that probably want to do European-wide tours. It seems to me it would be logical to have someone on the team who spoke English because that's your leverage. You want to leverage everything that is best, and speaking English is your maximum leverage. Speaking Spanish, in the case of Mali Hali, maximum leverage. It's the most value that you can offer. Matthew, Irish business studies student, looking to move to Poland when I finish. Girl, good man. Polish level, hopefully at C1 when I finish. Whoa, Matthew. Okay, so dude, you're at C1, which means you could easily work in almost all Polish companies. If you truly are at C1, my friend, then the job market for you looks completely different. And this is why, guys, putting investment into your Polish language is going to be useful. I've done a 2-hour live about how to learn Polish, how I learned Polish, in which I give you I can't remember, I think it was 15 tips about how to do it. It lasted 2 hours, so it was really detailed. Matthew, you're at C1, so the door's open for you, my friend. And guys, this is it. If you were to speak C1 Polish, then the entire of the Polish job market would be open to you. If you only speak English, then you're only going to be able to look for jobs in which you're able to function in your daily work with your colleagues, because that's also important, in English, which closes the job market to you. Now, like I did, if you can land a job like the British Embassy where you're working mostly in English, but with a little bit of Polish, you're able to study Polish for free because I got classes. I had to fight a little bit to get it, but I got it. Then you're going to progress quite quickly. But it still took me 5 and a bit years, almost 6 years, from moving to Poland to working for the first time in an all Polish environment. And it wasn't comfortable for me, my friends. But as I've already told you, I'm not a natural. Simon and I were in touch earlier. He's a photographer and a sound engineer. So he's got a couple of different routes he could go down. So we're going to come back to him as well. Okay. Stuart, I simply want to move to Poland because I love the country. Difficult to move with kids, of course, but I'm expecting to move away and get married at some point. So Stuart's a really interesting case. I have rarely met someone like Stuart who loves Poland, but there's no there's no woman-related reason to it. Stuart, I think you could easily look at IT opportunities for you, and I'm going to do an exercise which I wrote for Ben as well, which we're going to do in a second. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. It's obvious, but it's amazing how few people do this, guys. By the way, can I ask you guys to like what I'm doing right now, to share this episode with anyone you think might be interested, to share this in Facebook, on Facebook groups, in expat groups as well. I love giving my time away. It just gives me so much pleasure to be able to share what I've been through, but I also need you guys to help me too. Okay, so forms of employment. Where are the opportunities for someone like you, who's someone like me? English teacher. I've talked about the pros and cons of that. The pro is you probably get the work fast. The con is the pay sucks. And you will inevitably run up against the moment where probably you don't want to do that for the rest of your life. You'll either end up carrying on doing it and then not being able to get away from it, which is where some people I actually know have ended up, and that doesn't make them feel very happy, or you just hate it, basically. I did not enjoy that time of my life. I didn't enjoy teaching English, other than the fact that, got to meet a lot of people. Number two, set up your own business in Poland. So moving to Poland, if you've got some capital, if you've got an idea, if you can spot an obvious business opportunity, then setting up a business to operate in Poland within the Polish market might make a lot of sense. Depends on the sector, depends on the area, depends on your passion, but you won't be able to do it alone. You'll need accountants, you'll need someone to help you navigate the Polish business system. It's much easier than it was. I've set up a company. It was actually surprising and just annoyingly difficult, but there was a small technical reason why. But like with any business, you're going to face challenges. So there was a guy who wrote in the Brits in Poland Facebook group, I'm thinking of setting up a food truck for the British community in Warsaw. There is no British community in Warsaw, and I felt sorry for that guy. But what was amazing is that hundreds of people wrote back to him to try and help him. Non-person, I'm not reading your comments. Non-person, that's because you're writing about Germany, which has nothing to do with the subject of today's webinar. So do I think the guy's going to do well with a food truck? My personal opinion is he probably won't. But I think the same criteria of decisions, the same things you need to think about if you were setting up a business in the UK probably apply in Poland. Have you done your homework? Do you have the capital? Do you have access to skills? Where's your target market? Are you operating there? How are you going to market to them? Have you got the sales process? We're not going to go into how to run a business in Poland today, but it's an option. So number one, English teacher. Number two, run your own business. Number three, this is something which would apply to Simon. Carry on working remotely for a UK or an international company. So we're working, everybody's online right now. This is more of an option than it was 10 years ago when I first came to Poland. You could very easily work online now for companies all around the world, be it a Filipino IT tech startup, a US tech company, in Poland. You could operate for them as a sales manager, as a representative, as the Central European, for example, business manager, business development person. Those are also roles that can be worked on. But essentially, earning in pounds, euros, or dollars, and living in zloty, you're going to be a happy man. Currency rates fluctuating aside. Number four, and I think this is a sector which personally appeals to me a lot: marketing and startups. So there are literally thousands of Polish companies that need to sell their products and services abroad. If you were to come to their company, you'd probably be working in a Polish language environment. Bing! You'd be getting a lot more Polish language contact. But they need you because you have that thing you can leverage, which they don't, which is the native English speaker. You'll have an English surname or an English language surname, or the equivalent if it's Germany, France, doesn't really matter here, Nordic countries, whatever. And they'll be able to leverage that. So typically, I would say marketing, but startups as well are very hungry for young, talented people. There was someone here who wrote that I've got business experience. Who is that person? Matthew, Irish business studies student looking to move to Poland. Polish at C1. Boom. Dude, you could be quite a useful character for a lot of Polish startups, or just generally Polish businesses that are looking to sell goods and services abroad. Separate division, exporters. Poland's an exporting powerhouse, guys. Poland has exports 3 times more than it did 15 years ago. 3 times more. I think about what would the UK economy look like if we exported tripled our exports. It's unbelievable. So again, what do you run up against? Well, a lot of Polish export companies that manufacture stuff, can be quite old school, with old school management and old school working practices and in the middle of nowhere, but that might appeal to you. So that might be something that you look for. There was a guy here talking about an engineer of some kind, industrial side, Graham. Perhaps that could be something that you could move into because you have a technical understanding and you could be interested in that. And then international companies in Poland. So this is what I was doing when I was walking around Warsaw, trying to find international companies in Poland and going on their website. And then you have to try and get their phone number. And it was a lot harder than it was now, because it was much harder in my day than it is for you guys. Now, what are some of the minuses? Well, many corporates in Poland had English language staff in the 90s. Tesco's, for example, but then gradually phased out the number of English employees. And guys, I'm talking about England, but it could be France or Spain. It just depends where you're from, because local people are cheaper. But not only that, they also speak English. So you wouldn't want to be in a situation, you couldn't really work in a company like that, because you wouldn't be able to make stuff happen in Polish if you don't speak Polish. So don't assume that there's a bunch of international companies that you can easily slide into just because you're English. In fact, we're going to talk about mindset in a bit, guys. Your English probably doesn't count for very much, except it's the only leverage you have. So what are you going to do? I can see a few comments here. What about retiring to Poland? Stuart, would a pension satisfy requirements? Stuart, if you don't mind, if you can give me the gross amount that you would have, because you would pay tax on your pension here in Poland, then I'd be happy to tell you whether I think you could survive. You've got a missus and 3 kids, so kids are expensive, especially at that age. Happy to tell you, my friend, you certainly can survive on the UK basic pension here with those 3 kids as well, but it could be doable. In any case, Stuart, I would say with your IT experience, you should be quite an attractive offer for the right kind of company. Organic Organist, my old friend. I'm born in Canada, speak Polish and English fluently, native English speaker. I want to get engaged but have no real job. I'm thinking of an MBA. I'm good with people. Organic Organist, how much experience have you got at all? What's your professional experience? I don't think Polish MBAs are much to write home about. If you ask my honest opinion, I don't think MBAs are really worth a year in business or 2 years in business. So that's just my personal anti-education bias coming through there. Okie dokie. Sorry, I do apologize. Organic Organist had written, I'm finishing my master's in Bydgoszcz in piano performance, studying a degree in orchestral conducting and at an opera academy in the National Theatre in Warsaw. Dude, that's like a hyper specific thing. For you to write, I don't know what to do, is a really interesting comment. That's like a very specific musical branch. I was speaking to a violinist the other day who said it's tough. It's tough being a violinist. I'm imagining being a orchestra conductor is probably a really niche role. What's the one thing you can do? Go and speak to people who are doing the job that you could or want to do in the future, and speak to them. Ask them for a cup of tea. Out of 10 invitations, 2 or 3 might say yes, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how busy they are that day. Sit down with them and ask them about the career path ahead of you. Since you speak Polish, you should be able to get this in the bag. Okay, guys. So once again, just recapping, you could be an English teacher. You could set up your own business. You could carry on working remotely for a UK company or equivalent. You could work for a marketing or startup looking for an English language speaker. You could look for a Polish company looking to export abroad. For example, if you have technical skills and knowledge, then in fact, you would be super useful because you know how, for example, the UK engineering sector works. They don't have the contacts, the knowledge, the companies, so they would buy your knowledge. And then finally, international companies operating in Poland, depending on the sector, the branch, how long the company is, what kind of company it is. The vast majority of employees are probably Polish and the company language is Polish. So even if they're looking for someone with English, you don't qualify because you don't speak Polish. Should you learn Polish? Take you a few years. Guys, I got asked by a great guy, Paul Webster, to talk about employment contracts. I'm going to skip that because I want to get on now to how to do it. What can you do? And I've got 10 steps for you guys. I've talked about some of them already. I'm going to go back to your comments in a second. First of all, number 1, leverage the experience you already have. You may be looking for a life change. You may be looking to step away from the experience you've had in the UK. In case Stuart's example, you're like, I'm bored of IT. I want to go in to do something creative. I wouldn't do that. Do the thing where you have the most value. The most value you can bring is your experience from the rest of your life, everything that you brought to the table so far. Don't walk away from that. Start with leveraging that experience because that gives you the most value in market, and then you can move on and pivot somewhere else. We'll talk about pivoting in a minute. Ask your partner to help you. Better yet, find a supporter in the industry you're working in. I'm going to talk about that later. So don't assume that your partner will actually be able to help you because, for example, my ex-girlfriend, Joanna, I mean, she had some professional experience, but she wasn't really working in the areas where I wanted to work. She didn't really know who the companies were. Just because she was Polish, it wasn't enough. What I should have done was amassed like a group of 4 or 5 people who were quite willing to help out. And lots of people helped me. It's not that they didn't help me, but in that first few months, I just kind of was isolated by the fact there was no internet and I didn't have internet. Guys, in those days, 10 years ago, I had to top up a little thing which I slotted into my laptop and it didn't work and it went off and I didn't have the internet. So it was a lot more different. So number 2, ask your partner to help you. And I'm going to talk about what that help could look like. Number 3, if you are going to pivot, you're going to do a career pivot. Let's say Stuart was working in IT, wants to work in English, or organic organist wanted to do something in music, but is now looking at just moving to Poland because he wants to be here. Or Simon wanted to be a photographer, but quickly realizes that it's a really difficult thing to do in Poland and moves somewhere else. Prepare properly. Don't come to the market and then assume you'll just wing it. You probably won't be able to work. You'll waste time, certainly. So since you're already thinking about it, you can start planning it. What can you do? I'll say Lawrence is a great example. I'm a nurse, but to be honest, I'm bored of working as a nurse. If I came to Poland, I'd like to work with people. Like I said, I've worked in bars in the past. Can I survive on that salary? Lawrence, probably not. You're probably, I don't know what your salary right now in the UK is. I think you're in the UK, but you would find it very difficult working in bars. Not to say that those jobs don't exist, but I would suggest to you, Lawrence, that you start to do something like, for example, marketing, startup, looking for a Polish company. Could be a Polish medical equipment company. Do you know how many Polish medical equipment companies there are? A lot. Now, you understand tech because you're a nurse. You probably have a good understanding of the procurement process in the UK. So, boom, that could be a route for you. Rob, I'm a chef, but you said before the pay is low. Yeah, Rob, chefs, like nurses, it's terrible pay. 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. I'm saying that's terrible. If I was 22 and I didn't give a monkeys and I didn't have any real costs and I was happy to stay in a hostel, I'd probably be all right with that. I could survive, not for very long. I do know that chef's pay is quite low in Warsaw because a friend of mine is a chef, tried it, and he just had to go into a sales role. So there are sales roles available. It can be high earning. My friend works for the Benelux countries, and he's on I think something like a 7,500 base, and he's earning 50. In a good month, he can get 15,000 watts, which is a pleasant salary to be on. Okay. So if you're going to do a career pivot, then you need to plan in advance. How to do that? Don't worry, guys. The rest of the tips are exactly about that. Number 4, don't assume you'll learn Polish in any reasonable time frame. So when I went, I've actually got it written down. I aim to learn Polish in 1 year. It's taken me 10 years and I'm still not at C1. As I've already explained, it took me 6 years. So you should probably assume you won't be able to speak Polish and plan accordingly. Number 5, identify the target companies you want to work for. Where are they based? Number 1 mistake. I walked the streets looking at labels on doors. Okay, so how can you do this? Well, guys, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is so amazing. LinkedIn is your best friend right now. We had a guy earlier who I just want to go back to now. Sorry, I can't quite remember names. So Stuart, I'm not going to go with IT because we already talked about IT a fair bit. Ben, music industry. Guys, I'm super interested about this. This is going to be interesting. I had a friend who tried to work in events. She was from Australia, didn't speak Polish. She tried to work in the events industry. And I think she probably would have got a job in events if she just networked better, which is something we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn. I can't show you this, guys, because I'm sadly, LinkedIn's function, YouTube's functionality sucks. So I'm going to look. I'm going to assume, Ben, that you're living in Warsaw. Events manager, Warsaw. Analysis manager, event manager. Okay, it's in Polish, so probably you're immediately cut out. However, it says here, requires English language. So, Ben, this is premium dystrybucja, spółka ZOO. Would it be worth you contacting the company owner of that company and saying, hey, my name's Ben. I don't speak Polish, but I know everything there is to know about the events industry across Europe. Probably you won't reply. Probably it'll turn out that they're only doing events in Poland, but you're still one step closer, one call closer, one relationship closer to premium distribution. Even if the guy says no, Ben, then what do? You say, okay, no worries, thanks. Could I take 15 minutes of your time to have a chat with you about how the music industry works? Because Ben, I know Jack about the music industry in Poland and the events industry. But this guy at Premium Distribucja probably knows everything he needs to know. So get towards that person. And I do this all the time, guys. I used to, when I was consulting for people, because my first ever company in Poland was a careers consultancy company. Didn't last very long. Career doctor. I'll put some pulse into your dead career. Okay, let's have another look. So senior event manager. Okay, that title's in English. That could be good for you, Ben. Let's have a look. Wow. Report to us if your English accent is something that a British person would be jealous of. So this is MKT Group, Ben. Again, the description's in Polish, so you probably wouldn't find this, but they're looking for mid-senior level. Now, Ben, you've been working for 5 years in management and live shows. You're a Polish learner, so sticks and stones. They want someone with amazing English. It's amazing. Just Ben, this is your dream job. So I'm carrying on going down LinkedIn. I'm seeing sales and marketing intern for Intel. Ben, you could do that. You could do an internship. No reason why not. I'm seeing marketing jobs as well. PR manager, not so much. I'm not seeing a huge amount of events, but this is just in Warsaw. And this is just with one quick search. So there are people, Ben, who are looking for people like you. And even if they're not looking for you, contacting them anyway is a good idea because you can always have a conversation. And almost certainly they know 5-10 competitor companies where one person is looking for a person exactly like you. Garrett Jeffrey, dude, you've been a massive help to me. You've been sharing everything I've been doing recently, so I'll certainly read your comment. I'm American, learning Polish. I've been teaching some English here already. Have experience in construction, retail, barista, etc. Starting to learn iOS development. Not sure what else I could do. So Garrett, are you happy teaching English? Maybe that's okay for you. Maybe you want to just teach English for as long as you can do some developing. In which case, dude, I mean, I've already talked enough times about how IT is a big sector right now. I know it's competitive. I know there's a learning curve and all the rest of it, but I would personally, without knowing you too well, say go down that route. On the other hand, because you're American, then everything I've said about looking for companies that are looking for Americans would be equally true of you. You've got construction experience. Construction industry is big in Poland. Polish companies are part of the construction supply chain. It's a huge business within Poland, and I bet there's a whole bunch of Polish companies that would be looking for construction advice. I'm gonna, Garrett, do a little search for you. Again, I'm going to LinkedIn, guys, clicking on jobs, clicking on search, clicking for the area where I might want to work, and then the job title that I'm looking for. And there's hundreds. Ben, office manager, head of school office. I'm not saying that's ideal, but you know, it's about events. So events manager could be event specialist. We're searching in English here, guys, and we're finding some nice jobs for Ben right now. Ben, I hope you're still watching this. Okay. Right, let's keep going, guys. So identify the target companies you want to work for. This is the number one mistake that many job learners have. They're like, I want to work in marketing. What kind of marketing? You want to work agency marketing or in-house marketing? Do you want to work in X job or Y job? Do you want to be a funnel specialist or do you want to be an optimization specialist? Do you want to be creative? Do you want to be front of creative or more on the back end of the creative? Do you want to do ads specialization? You know, there's so many different roles. If you don't know what you're looking for, inevitably you will end up not looking for the right thing. And also, it's super important for you to understand that you're going to be working in this organization for quite a long time. You want it to be aligned with your values. If IT doesn't make you feel good now, imagine how you'll feel after 6 months of doing a job that you don't particularly like anyway in that area. You won't feel happy. And regardless of how much salary you get, inevitably, after about 2 to 3 months, you will always say, this sucks. I wish I was back doing what I was doing before. Okay, guys, moving on. Contact the relevant decision makers in those companies on LinkedIn or elsewhere. Invite to tea. So, I did a job search, but there's another amazing thing you can do, which is to identify people in the industry in which you want to work who are online right now. So, Rob, you're a chef in the UK, if I remember rightly. There's nothing stopping you from contacting English speaking chefs. For example, there's Damien Vavjivniak. Can't remember his surname now. I can't do it. Who's the most famous Polish chef in the UK. He works really, really hard. Super nice guy. You could contact him, Rob, and you'd almost certainly have. Ben writes, awesome, Jenky. All right, Ben, you see, it was just a question of searching, and there's roles that are specific to your experience where you've got more value and you've got a ready-made product. Not to say it's easy. Okay, so where was I? I've completely forgotten. So, even if there's not a job available, what's stopping you from contacting the person at the right level? Could be C-level, could be just a manager, and saying, hey, I'm in Warsaw next month. Can I come and see you and buy you a cup of tea? Just 15 minutes. If you write to 10 people on LinkedIn, actually, I've had some pretty good results this. I had a friend who was Romanian. Gabriel has just written Romanian. So I love Romanian people. I'm a huge fan. Know a lot of Romanians, work with some Romanian people right now. And my friend who was Romanian wanted to move to France, and she wanted to work in consultancy and IT. And I asked her, start writing to CEOs and COOs and CTOs and CMOs in France, in top companies where you'd like to work. Guys, out of 10 people she wrote to, maybe it was because she was a she, I don't know, maybe that's being sexist, but she seemed to get really high results. 9 people wrote back and said, yeah, I'll have a cup of tea with you. Let me know when you're in Paris, and I'll make 15 minutes in my diary. There's a huge, vast, untapped level of goodwill out there, which you could tap into. You just need to start. And that doesn't mean spamming job posting boards. It means being clever. Yes, it's about personal relationships. If any one of you came to me, I'm willing to recommend Holy Folk. Good jobs are reserved for families of Secret Service. Without that, you can search for work forever. That is, my friend, complete and utter nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That's just flat out untruth. Okay? There's loads of good jobs out there. Don't discourage people. Incorrect. Fake news. Unfortunately, you've also thrown me off my track. So write to those people. If you sit down with me, probably already know someone working in industry. So Ben, I knew someone who tried to work for events, and I could have put you in contact with her. If you spoke to her, she would empathize with you. She was from Australia, lovely lady, Tonya. She would be able to tell you everything that she tried, all the companies she approached, and you'd be able to tap into all of her knowledge. That network is out there. You just need to ask for it. And the reason why I think about this sometimes, the other day I put up, hey, if you guys are sad about coronavirus, I'm happy to talk to you if you're feeling depressed or something. I kind of wrote it in Polish. People thought I was depressed, and they started writing to me saying, hey, I'm here to help. There's so many untapped levels of support out there for us, which you can tap into if you just try. So my next recommendation, guys, is for you to write to target level people, even if they're not looking for a job, and just say, can I come and visit you the next time in Warsaw? Happy to adjust your diary. Just 15 minutes. Just want to get a better understanding. You could even go for a slightly lower level in the company you're looking for, because then they might be more interested in speaking to a native speaker. Or you could go right for CEO level, C-level decision maker, because that person could willingly say, you know what, you're really nice. I want to hire you. I want to hire you anyway. Let's just do it. That could equally happen. Remember, I don't want to say success, but the moment where I felt safe for the first time was when I went for a 6-week internship. I didn't earn anything, but I was on the inside for the first time. And by the way, sorry, Holy Fuck, if I reacted quite aggressively to you. Yes, you're right. It's about who you know, but there's not some amazing level of secret service. That's just not true. However, it is important that you have natural relationships with people, and you can do a lot of different things to do that. Number 7. Reach out to expat and immigrant groups on Facebook and ask for help. They are amazing. I told you about the food truck for the British community in Warsaw, which is a bit of a mythical community, if you ask me. The guy wrote, what would you recommend I have on the menu? Any advice for me? 120 comments later. So for British people, there's Brits in Poland, Brytyjcy w Polsce. There's a whole bunch of different Facebook groups. If you put a comment in there, make sure, guys, that it's actually detailed. Say how much experience you've got, what your Polish is, what you've tried so far, who you've tried to contact, what hasn't worked, what else you'd like to do. I'm Polish. Tell them about corruption as well. Don't forget Secret Service was shortcut for us all families. Dude, just nonsense. I can fundamentally disagree with you. And honestly speaking, I'm going to give you a little warning, holy folk, okay? Because that's just fake news, okay, dude? We're here to encourage people, not to give them a false idea that there's some sort of secret mafia. The things that you encounter in Poland, holy folk, are just the kind of things that you would find in many different countries, okay? There are networks of people all over the place. Poland's not unique, okay? We need to drop that mentality that there's someone, a very Polish mentality, if you don't mind me saying, where it's like, that guy's got a nice car. What sneaky układ has he got up to? It's not about that. It's about being the best we can be. Let's not discourage people. Okay, so tip number 7, reach out to those groups. Add yourselves in. I had a guy who approached me last week, and he approached me on Instagram. Have you gone onto Facebook? No, I've never done that. He still hasn't posted. So again, tap into that network out there. It will help you. Number 8, have enough savings to give you a proper amount of time to look once you've got boots on the ground. So probably you'll need to move to Poland and be in Poland to physically meet people to make stuff happen. If you don't have enough reserves, then you'll end up just doing anything to keep the money going. Robert Young, that was me, lol. Okay, Robert, post, dude. I've been waiting for your post, man. I want to help you. You got to post. If you turn up with £500, then after a month, that £500 will be gone, especially if you make the stupid decision to buy a pint of Guinness and it turns out to be 25 zloty, but you think it's 12, and you end up looking like an idiot because you give 25 zloty away, which is a lot of money in 2010. I will never forget that moment. So if you're thinking of pivoting, or if you're thinking you need some time to avoid making short-term panic decisions, have enough money to survive. How much should you survive? Well, I've given you at the start of this the kind of average earnings that you would need to keep yourself going. 3 to 6 months would be ideal. I think within 3 months you should be able to do well. Tip number 9, guys, don't apply only via job sites. So, for example, if you see on LinkedIn that a company's looking, approach the decision makers, the higher up people on LinkedIn. If you go on to pracuj.pl, there's loads of them like Golden Line, pracuj.pl, praca.pl. You are one of hundreds of other people applying. And if it's a Polish language job, if your CV's not in Polish, then probably you're gone whatsoever. I'm not saying don't try, but spamming randomly, changing the title of the company in the description, all the rest of it. I've always wanted to work in the American Chamber of Commerce, wrote someone to me once at the British Polish Chamber of Commerce. I'll never forget that moment. Or the person who turned up for a job interview somehow managed to get through the clearance, who didn't really know what the job was for. I've seen it all. It's one of the common mistakes. I would recommend that instead of taking a spray and pray approach where you just try and blow, today I'm going to send 50 job applications, bang, bang, bang. You just go in targeted. Know industry you want to work in, know the type of company you want to work in, know the type of job you want to look for, and go for it. Just fix there. Just tell me why I'm working in Belgium for 5 times more money than lol. Holy fuck, dude. I have no idea what industry you're working in, but I never said at any point throughout the course of this call, in fact, I've said the exact opposite, that people in Poland earn a lot. I earned nothing for years. Probably wouldn't have earned more. But holy fuck, answer this. Is life all about how much you earn? No. If it was, I would have sold a kidney by now. If it was, I would have kidnapped a child and sold her for money. Or him. I haven't done that. But I could do. If money was the only factor in my life that I cared about, then I probably wouldn't have moved to Poland. But I love Poland. And I know I'm happier here inside of myself with the relationships I have because I moved here. Dude, I could go and prostitute myself in a country. Probably wouldn't earn very much money, maybe even less than I'm earning right now. Money is not the reason why we're happy in our lives. It's a byproduct of making value for other people. Kidnapping, best job advice yet. Oh man, my YouTube career is over. Okay, moving on, guys. Don't apply only via job recruitment websites. They suck. They just suck. They suck. They're so bad. Go for the personal relationship route. It guaranteed to be less work, more enjoyable, less stressful. And number 10, do go for internships. If you can't get your foot in the door any other way, go for an internship, go low, but just be in the industry where you want to work. So for Ben, he's got this music experience. If you go down the English route, you're going to be tired at the end of the day. You're not going to want to carry on looking. You could do it, but the inevitable result of doing a job is that by the end of the day, you're just tired and you lack the impetus for look for something else. So Ben, even if it was hey, Premium Distributor, or whatever the name of that company was. Can I come and intern with you guys? Then it really is a no-brainer for them. They get this English language speaker, could maybe redo their website, could do like a whole new brochure that they could send off, that kind of thing. So recapping my tips, guys. Number one, leverage the experience you already have. Number two, ask your partner or someone who knows your industry to help you. Number three, if you're going to do a career pivot, prepare properly. Number four, don't assume you'll learn Polish quick enough that you'll be able to open up the Polish language job market. Number five, identify the target companies you want to work for. Where are they based? If it's the automotive industry, I think I saw someone talking about that earlier. I'd say Rzeszów, it's the southeast of the country. Be in the place where the companies where you want to work are. Number six, contact the relevant decision makers in those companies on LinkedIn and go and invite them for tea. Number seven, reach out to expat immigrant groups on Facebook. There's communities out there willing to help you. Number eight, have enough savings to give you amount of time to look once you're here if you need to be here to do that. Number nine, don't only apply via job recruitment sites like Pracuj.pl or Golden Line because they suck. Number 10, go for internships. Be willing to prostrate yourself on the floor. No, organic organist, not for your hourly rate, but just because you want to get into the company. Once you're inside, then it's about personal relationships. Holy fuck. That I think is definitely true. Alicja Jabłonska, we should go to the place that we love. That's why we're researching jobs in Poland. We live in London, 5 times more money than in Poland, but that's not the point at all. Alicja, if you want to tell me what sector, branch, job you work in, then maybe I can give you some advice now. Yeah, Alicia, great advice here. If I can advise something from my recruiter experience, reach out to recruiters. Duh. That's a really stupid thing that I should have said. There's a whole bunch of recruitment agencies out there and there's many people willing to help. But now I want to talk about mindset. I want to talk about the things that probably are going to cause you problems, emotional stress. I'm going to talk about beliefs, things that I think you need to assimilate. Ask yourself the question, do I agree or disagree with this statement? You will be rejected. I agree with that statement. I know that I'm going to be rejected. I know that I'll have to apply loads of times before someone says yes. I'm ready for that. Is that your mindset or not? Only you can answer that. All your experience helps you, whether you know it or not. This is really interesting. So when I was singing in a band in 2011, 2012, not many people know this. I traveled all around Poland with this bunch of guys singing in a band. What I didn't realize was it was preparing me for a career in public speaking, which is what I do a lot of now. As you can probably guess, I do a lot of presentation work. Everything you've ever done, ever learned, ever spoke about will help you. You've integrated it. It's part of your skills. It's part of who you are. There's no such thing as bad experience. Agreed? Good. Even being a chef, that's good. I need to hear the demos. No demos will be heard. However, if you search online, you can find brief bits of footage. It will be hard. It won't be easy. Agree? Disagree? If you think it's going to be easy, you'll be disappointed. I'll talk about cultural differences in a second. You will earn less. Holy fuck, as already pointed out, average salaries in Poland, I think on average about 60% of EU averages. Again, this huge amount of sector differential. IT, boom, Stuart, you're awesome. Chefing, nursing, difficult, apart from the fact that you inevitably still have to speak Polish. You will at times feel worthless. It's not easy moving to a foreign country and going from, say, a high-pressure, high-intensity job like working at the cabinet office for a government minister in the middle of the financial crisis to standing at a bus stop at about -15 with the wrong shoes on, the wrong clothes on, having finished a job that you don't like for low pay, being hungry and missing your family. You feel bad and it's not a good place to be in. I can only say that there's always an upside from that feeling, which is that experience of testing you challenges you to be a better person. It can motivate you to be a better person. If I can speak personally for 1 second, the fire I have in my belly, the determination I have, that thing where sometimes Polish people write to me saying, you had it easy. It was so easy for you. People just rolled over and gave you money because you were English. You weren't standing at the bus stop, frozen cold, accidentally standing in puddles, soaking your shoes, not having enough money to eat, or just spending money. If you're going to drink, it has to be vodka because that's the cheapest way to get drunk. That's not life opening its doors for you. Holy fuck, man. I love you. Okay, dude. It's all good. Okay, we're fine. Assume you will find polls maddening, irritating, weird, and deceptive. Simon, I'm going to pick on you, dude. Alicia, she's probably lovely. But when you go and work in a Polish company, you will be exposed for the first time to a lot of cultural differences that are quite subtle but important. I can't really describe this in any meaningful way, but they're there. And again, you'll feel alienated. You'll feel like you're not part of a community or team. You'll feel like the odd one out, maybe because of the language, but also because Polish people don't think and look at problems the same way we do. And holy fuck, actually, if I say one thing, I'm really enjoying saying your name, by the way. Holy fuck, if I say one thing, it would be this. There are a lot of cultural differences, and I don't like all of them, but I've learned over time that it's not on Polish people to change, it's on me to understand and accept the way that people work. You talk like Jordan Peterson now, Gabriel Sebastian. I like your motivational style. Gabriel, you know what? I had a nap earlier and I listened to Jordan Peterson. Sent me off to sleep. But I hope you don't do that in my case, okay? I might be Jordan Peterson, but I like to think I've got a little bit more humor in me. Bless his little cottons. So, you need to be ready for this inevitable culture shock moment. It will happen in your personal life anyway, because people won't do, think, act, speak the way you want them to or expect them to. I'll give you one example. I was at a workplace, and unfortunately, the guy I sat next to died. Tragic circumstances. I won't mention his name, obviously, out of respect for his family, but it was bad. And my first reaction was, when we found out at work, guys, let's all go down the pub, because that's what you do. It was 4:30. Everybody went home. What, we're not going to sit around and talk about this guy? We're not going to remember him? We're not going to share the good moments and the bad moments and let it all out? That's what you do in the UK. And it profoundly shocked me when I went back home. Bless your cottons, you'll get cancelled. I don't know what that means. Another one. This is an amusing situation. So we did a presentation at work. It was a big presentation. I won't mention the employer. And this guy, who was an English guy, who put up for sports people, and it was something to do. His question he asked was, "What is the difference between them?" And one of them was Usain Bolt. And one of the Polish staff just got up and went, "He is black." And he was black, and he was the only black person out of those four. But it was obviously not the thing that the trainer, was trying to get that person to say. Poles can be they can be blunt, they can be aggressive, they can be rude. If you look at it from an English perspective, they're not actually being rude. You just don't understand that cultural norm. And then finally, I think I've talked about this enough. Don't assume that just because you're English, the world will open up for you. I've heard that in the 90s, if you spoke English, well, many things would be nice for you. Not just work, but for personal relationships. None of that's true now. I don't think being English is any particular biggie, because Poland's one of the world's best countries for producing people who speak pretty good English, although they often tend to be embarrassed about it. Guys, I'm going to give you 3 case studies, and you can let me know what you think about the emotions and mindset that I've talked about today. First one is a guy called Tom. Tom moved because he met a Polish girl, boom. But simultaneously, he got recruited into a company that was the direct competitor of the company he was working in for the UK. He's now in a senior management position, and he's just doing fine. Beautiful. Learning Polish. Very proud of him. Roy came to Poland when he was 55. He met a Polish girl in the UK. Came to Poland, standard story, nothing unusual here. Decided to move over, not having a job. Because he was 55 and he had a lot of manufacturing experience, but he didn't want to do the manufacturing stuff again because he was tired of that job, he ended up kind of swimming a little bit in a circle. It went okay, but I think the biggest thing there was he failed. He failed to do his homework. He failed to pivot properly. He failed to leverage networks. He failed to use Facebook groups. He committed all of the mistakes, or didn't do all of the things that I outlined today. And then finally, Simon. Simon, I hope you're still on this chat. Simon is a music engineer. and he also is doing sideline stuff in photography, and he hasn't yet moved. So we talked a little bit a while ago. He hasn't got kids. He's in a pretty good position. He's living with Alicia. They're thinking about coming back. What could Simon do? Well, my immediate reaction is this. First of all, I know a sound engineer. So, Simon, I can put you in touch with a sound engineer who knows Poland like the back of his hand. So don't talk to me about whether you can make it as a sound engineer, but you're in one of those jobs where you could easily work for any company around the world and be based in Poland. If you already have a whole bunch of clients in the UK, just take them to Poland. They send you the files. Doesn't matter whether you're in Weybridge or Warszawa, you're going to do that work. So that's good news for you if you have that client base. If you don't, and if you're looking in Poland, well, I can tell you, sound engineer is one of those really weird specific job areas. I always thought of my friend, he should have gone to 150 agencies that did a lot of video production, saying, hey, here I am, here are my rates. Do you want some sampling? Can I do a sample project with you? He never quite did that. He could have taken a marketing style approach with agencies. But it's a difficult job because you're at the end of the supply chain when it comes to delivering projects. Sounds usually a little bit at the end. And as a result, payment terms, you can get screwed on payment. I haven't even talked about the subject. Maybe it's something I should talk about for another topic. So let's say we're sound engineer. Well, you know what it's like being a sound engineer in the UK. I'd say your chances of making it are going to be tougher because you need to be working Polish and a lot of agencies in Poland. But in any case, you could work internationally. So that would probably be comfortable for you. With photography, the same challenges that apply for being a photographer in the UK apply in Poland, except you don't speak Polish. So it's harder. As a result, I think, Simon, I probably would say you're going to have some challenges building a photography business. How do photographers make money? How do they get clients? How do they keep the ball rolling? Word of mouth. From experience. I may be wrong, Simon, but if that's true of the UK, it's also true of Poland. So what are you going to need to do? Dude, you're going to need to hustle. You need to work hard. You're going to need to send out information, write in groups. You probably have to embarrass yourself a little with how much you promote yourself until you get your first gig. Weddings. Yeah. Well, as you know, there's a lot of English-Polish weddings, so maybe you could start there. That's exactly how we got our wedding photographer. And I know that from my wedding, our photographer went off and got some other people. Organic organist. As a Polish Canadian dual citizen, should I look for a job here in Poland, online, or in Canada? Organic organist. You are easily able to look for a job here in Poland, my friend. Robert, there are so many photographers to choose from. Robert, yeah, absolutely right. I don't have a huge amount of optimism about Simon developing a great career in photography in Poland, but I don't want to be a naysayer. So since he's young, he hasn't got kids. Alicia, it's just a question of time, my friend. Then I think he can probably go for it. I still say to Simon, he could probably do some other agency marketing, some of the other things I've talked about today. So he should have that in mind. The worst case scenario would be if Simon ends up doing English teaching, because that's the only thing he can find. So since Simon and Alicia, she's giving me a little winky smile. So who knows, guys? Maybe if you have a boy, you could call it. I'm just saying, no one's ever named their kid in my honor, and I think it's about time. That would really be something. So Simon, I don't say no, but if it's tough in the UK, then imagine what it's like in a country where you don't speak the language. For example, the bride and groom are like, yeah, but we need to talk to you. Organic organist, Alicia and I have not met yet. Alicia, you're in demand, my friend. Okay. Advertise in the UK for weddings in PL. Robert, interesting idea. I mean, actually, wedding photographer, you're talking about thousands of zloty per wedding. So if you're in the wedding season and you're doing weekend weddings, you're going to be doing pretty well. Gabriel, in which I know that there is a job position in some wedding planning agency, but I don't know more. Gabriel, what do you mean? Do you mean for Simon? In which case that could be interesting. But it could be that Alicia wants to live in Silesia, in Śląsk, because that's where her family are from. Totally understand that. I can only say one thing, guys, and maybe this is a good thing for me to emphasize. I'm so very grateful I ended up in Warsaw, because none of the good things that have happened to me, including the British Embassy, British Post, Chamber of Commerce, maybe business, probably not the filmmaking kind of stuff I've done, have all happened because I've been in the capital. So it's just going to be harder for you if you are doing a job where you need to be physically located, if you're not in one of the places where you want to be. Okay, Alicia and Simon are Warsaw based. So if you guys let me know where you are, in Warsaw, and maybe you can come and I can sprinkle some Mushinyanka on the head of little Patrick. Guys, have you got any questions for me? I've run through top 10 tips. I've run through 7 mindset assumptions. I've given you 3 case studies. I've answered a whole bunch of questions. I haven't talked about different forms of employment, but I hope you guys forgive me. Essentially, guys, what you need to know is that personal income tax is 17% up until 85,000 zloty, and then 32% after. And when you go above the 85,000 zloty, you start paying 1/3 of everything you earn back to the government. It starts to hurt. For running a business, for example, if you run a sole trader, which is a very popular route, you can choose a 19% flat tax, so that if you're going to go over 85,000, not only can you declare costs and offset them against your tax, but also you can pay 19%, which is a pleasant figure compared to 32%. There are other ways that you can pay as a business owner. You can have dividends and member of the boards and that kind of thing, but I think that's a subject for another day. Robert, what about the housing market? Robert, what do you mean? What do you mean about the housing market? What company, job? Guys, we always want to be extremely specific. Construction manager or worksite manager. Then I know exactly what you mean. I'm from Lublin. There's lots of jobs and lots of wild nature around, which should be interesting for foreigners. Peace and quiet. Yeah, absolutely. Holy fuck, you're absolutely right. Okay, let's keep going. Organic Organist. There's a bookbinder in Bydgoszcz who is really old, wanted to take me as an apprentice and give me his business on our second meeting. He's been waiting for a year about my response. I've got a week. Organic Organist. Firstly, has he got any debts? Secondly, what does his accountancy look like? Are you taking on any debts and liabilities? Fourthly, what's his income? Those are all business-related questions that we could talk about there. Gabriel, 4,200 netto will be enough for a decent life in Łódź. I'm single. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Gabriel, you're all good. That's fine. You'll do absolutely fine. I would have killed for a salary like that when I first came to Poland. Let's keep going. Any other questions for me, guys? I talked about personal income. I've talked about 6 different ways that you could potentially land on your feet. Oh, okay, Robert, the housing market, so you can move in somewhere. So basically, how much the average house, flat, and costs involved, if you know. Yeah, holy fuck, you can tell me otherwise. Alicia, let me know. I would say if you are looking for this, talk about Warsaw. If you're looking for to rent an apartment for one person in Warsaw, you should be expecting anywhere between 1,500 and 2,500 zloty plus bills, which may end up being 500 zloty. So between 2,000 and 3,000 zloty. You could live in a crappy neighborhood in a really crappy place for less than that. For example, you could choose to do a flat share. A typical flat share with 2 other people might be between 700, 1,300 zloty per month. You would be super lucky if you were to find something that was all right for less than that. That's the kind of rental for one person. However, if you're looking for a slightly bigger flat, you might be looking upwards of 2,000. The good news is that if you're coming to Poland right now, because of the coronavirus, there are a lot more people. Apparently, there's been a big dip in the rental market. You can get somewhere pretty good for about 15, 20, 25% less because people just need the money. Simon, this has been so good. Thanks, Pine. Thank you, my friend. I really, really appreciate that. Holy fuck, flat in Lublin, new development, 60k GBP. Yeah, 70 square meters. So guys, one thing you need to know, one of the other shocks is, what about buying? Does it work similar to here, i.e. deposit? Yes, there's a deposit. Your deposit is going to be 10 to, wow. Okay, an interesting question from AM Thomas. Are there particular ways that Poles establish trust with one another? Let's come to that again. That's an interesting question. I see questions about property buying. Stuart, houses look cheaper. Yeah, so I still think Poland's a housing property market with a lot of potential. I really feel, guys, looking at Warsaw, for example, I'm going to come, okay, it's my life, it's Warsaw, so I can talk about Warsaw. I really feel that the housing market is underpriced. And if you were in the UK and you were looking at buying property, Poland would be a nice little bet. You talk about London plateauing. It feels like London's just always growing all the time and is always a good news story. Warsaw, for me, feels like exactly like London might felt about 20 years ago. For example, on my flat, which I bought for 400,000 zloty, I say bought, I took a mortgage for 400,000, which was 47 square meters in Powiśle, so in the center of town. 400,000 for a similar flat in slightly worse condition. When I last checked 2 years ago, so about 3 or 4 years after purchase, it was already being valued at 500,000. So that's a 25% increase in the space of 2 or 3 years. Now, it probably didn't go for that price. They probably haggled a little bit, but that's still pretty good. Whether the coronavirus has impacted that, I don't know. But property in Poland will be cheaper. It'll probably be smaller. If you want to live in a city compared to the countryside, then you're going to have a very different experience. I don't want to rent. I want to buy. Thinking of Józefów by Warsaw. Pretty expensive, dude. But I'm a fan of buying. I think it works out better than renting. Stuart, with or without mortgage, but not renting. Well, if you were going to buy in cash, Stuart, you're probably in a pretty nice position. Let's have a look. Do you need to pay ZUS if you're employed by a UK company and paid in pounds? Alicia, if you are resident in Poland, which means if you spend, if I remember rightly, more than 90 days in Poland, then you are liable for the revenue that you earn, regardless of where the money comes from. So if you are, it depends on the employment contract that you have. If you are a sole trader in Poland, delivering a service for a UK company, then you would be liable for ZUS. ZUS is smaller at the start, but then grows, and paying that 1,300 every month, as I can speak from personal experience, is not pleasant. If, on the other hand, you have an umowa dzieło, then you would have a different tax structure. You would pay a PIT, which is your personal income tax, and then the rules that I've applied have mentioned before. But yeah, if you live in Poland, then you're liable for paying tax. Unfortunately, you can't work like Apple and screw the system and pay less tax. Yeah, you're talking about ZUS, so I think I've answered your question there. Gabriel, depends the city, of course. Dry Wood, folks, the rental price is almost half as Warsaw. Yeah, absolutely, guys. It's not that I'm saying that Warsaw's the only place. If you look at pretty much anywhere outside of the big cities, then your costs are going to be significantly less. I would say food, for example, costs outside of cities are about maybe even half, 60% of how much they cost in Warsaw. So your bang for your buck will be significantly greater in outside. Alicia, I work for Amazon. Speak about taxes. All I can say, my dear friend, is that Amazon are coming to Poland, so maybe you and Simon can make it. And Alicia, maybe you're the kind of person who's able to support Simon as he grows his photography job. So all of this does come down to the individual relationships you have, whether you can afford to do that. I'm going to come back now to a question which is really interesting around how do Poles establish trust with one another. So Thomas, how do we establish trust? A.M. Thomas, interesting question. I would say I was distrusted. My first company where I worked with the Polish people, I was distrusted a bit. This is the British embassy. If I'm being honest, they treated me a little bit as an outsider. That's how I felt. Maybe I was wrong. But also it's because I was younger. I had come with a whole bunch of experience. I was used to working at high intensity. Some of these people had been working before the Berlin Wall fell down. They would have been working for the British embassy. Now, absolutely no disrespect to the embassy. I think this is the case for many companies. If you go in as the outsider, you'll come in. And I already talked about some of the cultural differences. The onus is on you, Thomas, to prove that you're worthy of working with them. So it's the same for a soldier as like a new captain when he comes into an old company and they've seen the wars and their company commander's been killed tragically. And then this new guy arrives. Well, it doesn't matter who he is. There's going to be a time period. How do you establish trust? You establish trust by the things you say, the things you do, the life you lead, the example you set to others. And part of that is about learning Polish and clearly speaking in Polish to these people. You're going to be establishing a rapport, interesting in their lives, taking interest in them, not belittling them. I remember, for example, one lady came up to me at the British Embassy when I just started after the first few months, and she said, you're too ambitious. You need to toe the line and do the same things we do. And after a few years, you might make team leader. And after a few years after that, you might make, you might even run this show. Well, within less than 2 years, I was running an organization that was bigger in terms of budget, 500,000 budget. And, I didn't let those people's prejudices, if you want to call them, or disagreeability, or just general resentment or resistance to me get in the way of where I wanted to go. So, Thomas, sometimes you need to establish trust, and I trust that you can do that. But other times, dude, you just need to roll with it. You just need to let your comet burn, and don't let anyone else stop you. Mod, sorry for an off-topic question. Could you say what the status of your movie is with Stephen Thompson? Just curious because I've donated a few quid. Mod, great question. Thank you for your support. We've delayed the filming of that film until next year. We should have announced that. Actually, I super apologize that we haven't done that, but we're doing that. Okay, we will do it. We will honor your money. We will honor the memory of those soldiers. But we want to do it at a time where we can move and film and progress the project in the right way. Philip, do you think it would be worth to buy a property in Poland now, rent it out, and then I'll have it when I move to Poland? My wife's family live in Białystok. Great question. I'm amazed to see how many questions there are about property, guys. I've got 2 properties in Poland. That means I've got 2 mortgages. So don't think that I'm some incredibly rich guy. I just pay my mortgage monthly like everybody else. Yeah, Philip, I do. I think, for example, Warsaw, Powiśle, I'm talking about 25% rise in flat valuation. I think that would be a very clever move, my friend. But again, it depends. How much liquidity have you got? Have you got the money you can set aside? Do you want to take out a mortgage? Stock markets go up, interest rates go up, things can be toppy and turny. We've had historically low interest rates in Poland for a goodly while. That can't last forever. But I keep saying that every single year and it keeps carrying on. So, Okay, let's keep going. Any other questions? Robert, my wife is from Ostrołęka, lovely bit, but there's nothing there. And Robert, this is a really interesting question, which is some people follow their wife or follow their loved one, and then they end up in a place where actually there's no work. You have to really think, okay, I want to work in this industry, in this particular job area, and as a result, I need to be in Rzeszów, or I need to be in Gdansk, or I need to be in Kraków because that's where all the shared services, sales jobs are, or I need to be in Wrocław because there's a whole bunch of IT companies there, or I need to be in Warsaw like Ben because that's where most of the events companies will be based. Guys, if you've got any other questions for me, you've been rolling this now for almost 90 minutes, which is a goodly long time. I want to let you know how proud and pleased I am of all the comments and the engagement I've had today. The last video, How to Learn Polish, has got something like 5,000 views, something like that. And that's pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. Helping other people makes me feel good about my life. And I'd like to encourage you all now to share this video and to give me some likes and comments, and go and watch all the other videos I've got on my channel. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and just generally do your part to help promote this. So Robert, thank you, has helped a lot. Awesome, man. I'm so happy. Alicia, you're amazing. Thank you for being so helpful. Alicia, I like you. And Simon, let me know when you're in Warsaw. Okay. If you're from Warsaw, Alicia, let me know what part of Warsaw you're from, and maybe I'll be in the area. So, maybe I can help you and Simon a bit more. Marcin, yes. Yes, I like that. Lawrence, how do I set my LinkedIn to search for jobs in Poland? Lawrence, the easiest thing in the world. First of all, have a good LinkedIn. I've done things in how to pimp your LinkedIn before on my LinkedIn, by the way, so you can have me on LinkedIn. I always try and help people as much as I can. I can see Garrett Jeffries already followed me. So you have jobs in the Simon. She's all right. It's perfectina. You go to jobs and you search for your next job. You've got 2 things to put in there: the title, skill, or company, city. There you go, my friend. Very easy. Where to next? Organic Organist. Can I invite you for tea, or better yet, beer when I'm in Warsaw next? Organic Organist, feel free to invite me. I can't always come because unfortunately I have 2 small kids and a wife at home, so it can be a little bit difficult to go out, but we'll see. Thanks, Patrick. Love the live streams. Thank you very much. Stuart, thank you. Really appreciate that, guys. Holy fuck, you've been amazing, dude. Sorry for flying at you. Gabriel, when you establish your business, you had the Polish citizenship. Is it hard for non-citizen to establish a business in Poland? Gabriel, no. Easiest thing in the world. Not a problem whatsoever. In fact, it's going to help you get your citizenship because you're able to prove that you're playing a positive economic role, or you're having a positive economic impact on the Polish country. Okay, guys. Hey there, Mr. Nay. We're actually retiring here in the States, going through the process of setting up our own spółka. So that's a Polish limited liability company to purchase a franchise in Poland to work in our retirement. Awesome, Jason. Props to you, my friend. A.M. Thomas, top rate webinar. Thank you very much. I super appreciate it. Mary Hare, thank you so much. I'm already following you on Twitter. Oh, Jason, thank you. Oh, guys, I love it. Really, really appreciate it. Shame we can't all meet for a beer at a certain point, but that's just how it goes. Lawrence, learning loads. Thank you for these live streams. So, guys, I've got another live stream on Friday, the 3rd of July, which is going to be with a voice coach, Ola Sayer. This is the number one mistake I think people make, which is they don't think and work on their accent early on because they're like, I got loads of other stuff. Have you heard about this? Words. Never mind how I say them. I just got to say them. I made this mistake as well. And I had 4 paid classes with Ola, which blew my mind. I realized how many mistakes I was making with my accent. Those are fixable problems that you can solve, but they take years. So it's better to do at the start. The 3rd of July, my friends, and it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Simon, I'm so going to watch that. Yes, I mean, it's the kind of thing that no Polish teacher will ever teach you about because it's a separate discipline entirely. Jason, about Polish. The university in Warsaw has a trimester intense Polish language class, very affordable. I've heard that some people go crazy on that course and learn Polish to C1 level in a year. Maybe I should have done that. I wish I'd thought of that. So, Lawrence, will you ever cover living in Poland with health problems or medical stuff? Interesting question. Probably not, Lawrence, because I don't necessarily know a huge amount about that other than having spent almost a month in hospital myself. So, the Polish health system is not great. It's one of the worst things about living in Poland. On the other hand, I have to say my experience of being in a neurosurgical ward and having my brain operated on was actually pretty pleasant, if I'm being honest. If I could say that. It wasn't so bad. Gabriel, some Polish find my accent lovely, but would be good to have it improved. And A.M. Thomas asked about this, about establishing rapport. The good news is that when you speak only a little bit of Polish, you're going to blow people away. People will just giggle their heads off, but they'll also have smiles on their faces and they'll invite you in, and can't be worse than the NHS. Robert, yes, it can. It is worse than the NHS. That said, it's worse in different ways. I think actually certain bits of the Polski NFZ, the Polish health system, are slightly better than the NHS. Donald Trump has, I'm not going to say what he said, so maybe let's just leave there. So guys, if you haven't got, we have to wait 2 weeks for a doctor's appointment. Robert, I was in that neurosurgical ward with people who've been waiting 3 years for a doctor's appointment. In other words, for surgery. 3 years with a neurosurgical problem is not a nice place to be. I think waiting times are probably worse depending on what the problem is. On the other hand, I have to say, Robert, I was pleasingly surprised by the level of equipment. It felt to me almost private level. And when someone's digging around in your brain, you want it to be the right kind of equipment. All right, guys, I'm super grateful for your support. I'm glad I've been able to help you. I promised my wife I finish on time today. So one more time, I want to ask you to share this episode with other people, be a part of its success, help to get it out there. There are stupid, crappy videos that last about 3 or 4 minutes where people try and give top 10 tips. You can't do that. You're talking about the rest of your life. It requires 90 minutes. And even then, we could have talked more about several of the subjects. So thank you very much for being a little part of this conversation. If none of you were here today, I wouldn't have been able to do this. So I really, really appreciate it. Mod asked about films. I've got some historical films in the good microphone technique too. I'll share this. It's the Uhuru £70 podcaster microphone, and it's a game changer. Do zobaczenia. This has been super helpful. Thanks, Garrett. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you sharing my films and stuff like that. I need that as well. So I super appreciate that. O czym było gadane? Asked Donald Trump. Donald, już za późno, mój drogi. All right, guys. Thank you very much, guys and girls. Alicia, Simon, Stuart, Thomas, Organic Organist, Gabriel, Mary, Hare, all of you guys. You've been really nice to me today, and I super appreciate it. So, not only how do you get to go to Poland, but what can you do to help other people? After all, that's what this is all about. We don't measure our life's work at the end of our days. Holy Fuck talked about how much you can earn in Belgium by how much we earn. The amount we earn and the amount we have sitting in our bank account when we lie in our last days is irrelevant to us. What is relevant is how much love we've given and offered to other people. These are thoughts that guide me in what I do and motivate me to do the kind of stuff like this. And I've loved having you with me during the course of this webinar. God bless you all. Bye-bye.